Welcome to the Penguin Podcast, brought to you by Penguin Facilities Management.
I want to introduce you to Sean of Led by Vision. Sean is one of our partners, works with us in lighting, automation and smart. So Sean, tell us a little bit about the work you do and what's the mission?
Yeah, of course. Led by Vision, founded the business in 2012. Very quickly got into mixed-use commercial and industrial spaces. The one thing with that particular sector is designing and developing solutions that can be driven for 24 hours a day. In the recent years, I'd like to think we were an early adopter of smart controls, so automating our lights and giving the customers visibility of what they're using and where. Right.
So lighting, obviously the big focus at the moment with everybody is energy performance. Mm-hmm. What role does energy performance and compliance have with lighting?
Yeah, I mean, lighting is quite heavily overlooked because people just expect it to be there. From a perspective of what role it plays, obviously it's a necessary evil in a building. And it probably, I mean, most of our customers will range anywhere from 15% of their consumption across the building up to some of the industrial clients that are literally just big sheds with lighting up to 80-90%. The real key part is actually trying to convert people into thinking that they're not just lights, that there's converting it into a currency and showing them basically how much money they can save by converting the building over to LED with ideally some form of controls to give them that visibility.
So talk us through how you would basically work with a Penguin client. We bring you to the table. They have a lighting solution that's outdated.
Yeah.
Talk us through that process.
Yeah, so the process from start to finish is attending site to complete a survey. Gone are the days where we walk around with a clipboard counting lights, which is the monotonous part of the job. We now have adopted technology into that part as well, using digital cameras that use radar and LiDAR. These are really, really cool pieces of equipment because most customers don't have DWGs or current DWGs for the building. So not only are we giving them a fully mapped new area of the estate, we're actually giving them the opportunity to update those DWGs that they either don't have or are long outdated. From there, we can go away and complete lighting designs, because we can extrapolate that into a lighting design file and effectively tailor the environment to what they need. And of course, giving them the kind of visuals on what their return on investment will be and their expenditure.
Yeah, no, and I get that. Obviously, the projects, that we've worked together on and seen come to life, we see that return on investment by gathering all the data.
100%.
And data is key in what we do. One of the things as we talk to clients is, we see that some clients may have already gone down the road of installing LED, mm-hmm. Maybe 10 years plus ago.
Yep.
Which is great. They've gone in the right direction. But we also see a lot of our clients getting it wrong.
Yeah.
What's the most common faults that what you would find in them commercial buildings?
Yeah. So in answer to the first question, if someone was an early adopter, the great news is that they're already aware of why they've made that move, because they probably very likely spent 2 or 3 times the money in 2010, 11, 12.
And seen that return.
And seen the return. Yeah. Again, they spent more money than they wanted to, but they've had that return maybe 3.5 times over. The solutions then would have probably been running at half the level of efficiency. And of course, 10 years on, the lights are going to have done their service and most likely started to fail, if not have failed in quite high numbers. The second question might remind me, sorry. You said something on the second part about, I lost my trail of thought.
The faults that they're making. So what faults do we find from that, maybe that first time round, or even clients that are maybe part way there?
I think the main fault is I suppose you wouldn't go to a plumber and ask him to design your bathroom suite for you. You'd ask him to fit it. And a lot of the time, they'll go to an electrical contractor, maybe a small independent, who will literally, more often than not, in my opinion, go to a wholesaler, because it's the go-to with stock.
Yeah.
Stock that might have been sat on the shelf for the last year or two, and stuff they might just be trying to get rid of. The customer's reliant upon that electrical contractor or handyman to do the job, and he puts in what he thinks is right. When really you should be looking at the product that's going to be in the building for the next 5 to 10 years, and working with a partner that develops the solution, as well as maybe that handyman or that contractor, but making sure that what you're putting into the building is fit for purpose, and not just it turns on and delivers some form of light for a year.
Yeah, no, and I can totally, totally agree with you with that. That, the contractor is there to install.
100%.
There is, there's data, there's design, that is required to.
Yeah, the part that's going to be there after he or she finishes her job is the light and the solution, how well it operates. Again, if it's back to one of our industrial customers and someone has put a solution in that genuinely won't last more than 2 or 3 years, and then they've got access equipment issues, getting them down from they're effectively going to be buy cheap, buy twice, or buy wrongly, buy twice.
Yeah, absolutely. So lighting's come on in a big way over the last 10 years. Just describe, what we saw 10 years ago to what we're seeing, to seeing now. Yeah,
of course. I mean, in its very, very infancy, at the area of infancy, maybe 2008, 2010, kind of going back that 10, 15 years, the lights did something, but it would be literally turn on and off and be very expensive. We had limited amounts of, I think, when I first got into the industry around that time, 2009, 10, dimming was almost virtually impossible without high flicker rates, and something didn't work alongside the dimmer or the control system. It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
So the tech worked in terms of giving efficiency and savings. However, those returns and investments would have been like 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people that made those moves early did it for a little bit of cool factor, and we're sustainable, as opposed to it was the right solution to go for. Fast forward to now, I mean, most of the smart control platforms that we're working with now are either wireless or work on a live and neutral feed. So any of these, what were fantastic building management control systems or dimming systems that effectively were Ethernet based or very highly intensely infrastructure based, can now literally just be plug and play or sent over Bluetooth. And of course, when it comes to talking about what savings a customer's going to get, moving from old tech to LED and pairing it with the controls, most of the stuff that we'll be delivering is minimum of 80% up to sometimes over 90. Believe it or not, you're making more savings adding in the daylight harvesting, the dimming, the occupancy, the data-driven decisions than you are from moving from old tech to just LED, which again is something that trying to educate customers on this. They think, well, I've already put an LED in now, and you think you've done all the hard work, you spent 85% of the money. Why did you not put some controls in that would have given you full visibility and automation of the building and got you maybe from 75% up to 90? But again, it's the education. It's kind of the reason we do things like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've probably taken away one of my questions that was on the tip of my tongue there, but we can elaborate and go a little bit further. So smart lighting. The effect that has on energy performance, it's much greater than obviously just installing that LED.
100%.
You've gone 85% of the way. Just give us an overview of that smart lighting and the savings you're going to see additional to standards.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
the savings, and apologies, I obviously touched on it on the prior question, going a bit too one step ahead. We'll literally go from old tech to new, minimums of 50% up to 65, 70. But by the time you start pairing that in with harmonized controls, be it daylight control or occupancy, and we spoke about this just before we set up, it's things like being able to use the data that we're giving the customer from the visible side once we've got the platform in place that gives them information that they didn't have before, that allows us to go, this warehouse area here, you've got 4 of these racking lanes. that have got 25-minute hold times.
Yeah.
Why did you put them in? Well, we don't want it to go off, but that's what the controls are there for.
Yeah.
Trust me, let me put these down to 5-minute hold times. You come back in a month's time and they've saved an extra 4%. And that 4% doesn't sound a lot, but if you're already at 85, you're now you're running the lights for next to nothing from what you were before. Second to that, you've got predictive maintenance for things like your emergency lighting. We can automate all of the function and duration tests, removing the need for human error or humans on site, and being able to pull those reports off either monthly or quarterly or annually to actually say, look, we're fully compliant.
Yeah, so
and the
further
tech,
cost saving.
yeah, and the tech goes even further than that. It will measure the level of the battery at the point in which the test was done. So let's just say the building was fully compliant. The report says all passed, but 50 of your lights have only got 8% battery left in them.
Yep.
Now you can make an informed decision to go, we're compliant for another year, or we know exactly where they are. We know exactly what parts we need. So again, from a predictive maintenance point of view, from a customer, you're spending less because someone can't pull the wool over your eyes, and you stay compliant if you want to change those 50 lights in the coming month or two.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So as you know, as a business, Penguin looks at three pillars, and obviously we spoke about energy performance, energy management.
Yep.
We work very closely with our clients in that area. One of the other areas that we work very closely is wellbeing. So having the right lighting.
Yeah.
Would you say that's important when it comes to to employee well-being?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that we will always get when we complete an install after is the lights are too bright. And the key reason for that is they were not bright enough for the last 4 or 5 years that you've been sat in front of your desk. Everyone's got glasses or contacts because their eyes have been burned away for the last decade. But back to the smart controls, you've got the ability now, it's getting super, super smart to base things on like circadian rhythm lighting. That's your internal body clock of when your hormones are released, when you want to wake up, when you feel tired, if you've had a big lunch. You can actually get now lighting that is controlled to work with the human clock.
Yeah.
So if we're getting into the point where it can make you feel better while you're doing your job and improve your efficiency in the workplace. It's moving on leaps and bounds.
So it's not just about well-being; it's also about performance. Of them individuals.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So obviously we're an FM. You're one of our partners. When my guys are talking to clients, potential new clients, what should they be looking for when they're out there on sites? What's the conversation they should be having?
Yeah, I mean the low-hanging fruit is luckily with lighting. It's not uber technical on the front end. You can tell if something's got old technology, burnt out fittings. It's the visual elements of the building and the places in which people are working. If you're going into a warehouse and the lights are, you can hardly read a label, there's your visual responses to saying, have you considered moving over to LED or adding smart controls into the building? I think that's one of the fortunate parts about the lighting world is it's very easy for anybody to work out that something needs to be done here to improve it. And at which point opening up the conversation about the fact that you can digitize the assets, give the customer full visibility over what they're using. All of a sudden you kind of take it away from the boring conversation of, do you want to change some bulbs, to do you want to know what you're spending? Do you want to know what you're going to save? And do you want full control over your building? And all of a sudden that kind of changes the narrative for the customer.
And like we've spoke before, where we have got them smart controls, and we can see, for example, emergency lighting. We can see when we do them monthly tests what the battery life is on that emergency lighting, so that we're actually being able to be more predictive. We're using that data again, which will save the client money, because we're not replacing units when they're completely out. We're looking at that data and saying that needs changing, that needs changing, that needs changing.
And off the back of that point, when you are adding controls into a building, what we tend to do is we overspec the building. So say, for instance, a warehouse or a commercial office space needed 500 lux. We'll spec it up to 800. And the customer goes, why are you doing that? It's going to cost me more. But then we'll tune it back by 25, 30% to where they need to be. Now we've got the components working 25, 30% less hard.
Absolutely.
And when we do need to boost the light levels up because the lights degrade over the first 5 years, we're in a position to be able to add an extra 150 lux back in rather than having to rip the lights out. Because the reality is as well, from a sustainability point of view, ripping out a load of effectively efficient lights to put new ones in to bring the light levels up is just ridiculous. Whereas if you put the controls in, it's the only way you can do it. We can stream things back by overspecking initially and then boost them up and probably give the customer more than their lease of their building in terms of the length that they're officially meant to be there, the light levels that they need to achieve.
And it goes back to that, what we've just been saying is the electrician is
he's going to do his job well, no doubt, by just fitting the lights. But then once he's off site, the design and the thought process that goes in behind it
is critical.
And just putting the lights in is probably something you do just leave with an electrician. If you're going to put it go any further with controls and thinking about the future or visibility of the assets and what they're consuming, you need to talk to someone who does the other side of it.
Okay. So I think, and I have seen the industry come on over the last 5-10 years, but if there was one quick change that you could make to make a big difference, what would be that at this moment in time?
Yeah, I said to you earlier I hated this question. In all honesty, is if they are going to have moved, the big change is moving the lighting over in general, right? But if they are doing that and it's coinciding, 100%, and I know we yapped on about it, put and add the controls, even if it's basic functionality, microwave sensors in toilets or PIRs. But the real key one would be if they're not moving lighting over, do something with the emergency lights. You're going to change the emergency lights anyway at some stage over a 2 to 3 year cycle. Make them smart. Because you can get smart control systems that you don't have to pay for everything to be on, and it's organic. You can add things on as you go along. So if you were to adopt the emergency lights, which removes the human error and human interaction on the compliance part, right? The bit that if you do need to use them, you don't want to be sued because they didn't work. And then as time goes on and you do make the move to change the lights over, you can just organically move them onto the platform as well. It isn't a do it now or you don't get a chance to. It's all, you can build onto these platforms organically.
What's the next step? Where do we go from here? And what do clients need to watch from a compliance point of view? We just talked about well-being.
It's a good question. The first part is if we're just talking about lighting, which isn't everything that Penguin do, it's working with someone like yourself and ideally someone like me that is trying to harmonise all of your systems. So if that's working down the path of lighting onto a front end platform, obviously you guys have got a fantastic version of HVAC. It's having everything. I think everyone goes on about IoT a little bit too much. This isn't IoT. This is just making sure that things talk visible, and you have control of them under one platform rather than having to go into a different app, because that's where people just get disengaged and they go, fuck this, I can't have an app, and that's where people then go, I don't want smart, because it becomes a headache versus something that they've got a one-stop shop. Having a platform that can effectively interact on the front end with things on the back end and give someone full visibility through one screen, I think that's the next big move. Simplifying and making things all organic on one visible screen. The compliance part, I think the key part on there, especially with the way the world's gone from people working in offices, employees being able to get away with being a lot harder with their staff, to them working from home, and now people getting pulled back into the office. I think from a compliance, things like the smart tech, the circadian rhythm elements of lighting, not that that's going to change everything, but it does make things. I've worked in offices, I'm sure we all have, where you can hardly see, something's flickering in the background, and it probably doesn't stop you doing your job, but subliminally and subconsciously it probably affects you in some way. So I think that making the workspace feel and look as good as possible, I think that's a key one.
Yeah.
And then the compliance. There's so many elements of compliance that I think are quite boring. But the big key one on the front end will be back to things like for lighting specifics, will be making sure that your emergency lighting is online. Remove that need for human error, because I can guarantee you there's no electrical firm in the world that goes around and watches every light for 3 hours, not in a building with 15 floors.
Yeah.
Whereas the system does all that hard work for you and gives you more data and more visibility.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming to join us today.
Lovely.
And hopefully that's gives some food for thought for the people watching.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
Cheers,
thank you
mate.
very much.
Thank you.